Yo, what's up everybody? I am continuing with my class videos here on the EverQuest Legends classes. So for this one I'm doing the Magician, and I'm going to be going over the strengths and some of the things to consider for each class, show off some of the spells and AAs that they get, as well as talk a little bit about some of the combos that I think go pretty good for them, what they might need and stuff. So getting started with the Magician here, going over kind of their strengths and their stances. So first thing I like to do is go over the stances they get. They get the Channeler stance, and then for their invocations they're going to have Arcane Mastery, Empowering, Inversion, Overchannel, and Recovery. So to go over kind of what I think are some of the strengths for them, they've got really strong pet options. So they have 4 different pets that they can summon. They have the Earth Elemental, which is a warrior and a ranger. Is really strong because it's their tank one. It'll do things like root and snare for them. And then it has a ton of HP compared to the other pets, so I've heard they get up to like 8k HP, 8,000 HP on a pet. So it's really nice option there for that. The next one I would talk about would be like the water pet, and that one is going to be a rogue and a warrior, and it will backstab. So having the pet backstab makes it like the highest DPS pet class for the mage options. Next up they would have the Air Elemental, which does a monk and a warrior. It'll do things like kick, and it'll still proc that stun that the Air Elementals would do in life. So pretty cool little pet option there. And then the last one to talk about would be the Fire Elemental. That would have a wizard option, so a warrior and a wizard, and it will be doing nukes. So really cool pets. One of the issues I've heard about with the Fire Elemental is it'll run out of mana, and then you're kind of sitting there waiting. So most people think the Water Elemental does the most DPS. The Earth Elemental is your strongest tank. Air is pretty cool for having the stuns. So it kind of comes down to personal preference, whatever you think. I really like that the Magicians get the Malo line of spells so that you can drop the resistances of your enemies and have your stuff land better, helps your whole group out. Really nice. They get some awesome pet specific spells like Burnout and some really good AAs that will buff your pets, and I'll go over those on the spells that I'll show off here in a minute off the EQL wiki page. And then I also really like the Magician's nukes. They get like the rain spells that AoE. They get direct damage nukes that are good, so pretty interesting all around. They'll also get really good damage shield spells, so mages have a lot of stuff in their toolkit that make them great. So here I wanted to show off the spells and AAs a bit, showing off kind of the higher level stuff that they're going to have here. Rain of Swords does an AoE 375 mana for about 324 damage, but it can hit up to 4 people per wave, so that's like 1200 damage. Really pretty effective. It just has a reuse time on it, but really nice mana efficient way to nuke a guy. Hit him 4 times for 300. It's pretty nice. They have the Banished Summon spell line, which is very mana efficient nukes. They get this thing, I haven't tried it in the game yet, but it sounds awesome. Summon Elemental Blanket, so if you need to take a nap, you get an Elemental Blanket. Here's their Lava Bolt, 238 mana for about 800 damage, which is pretty efficient. You can drop some damage with your nukes. This is one I wanted to look at, was this Burnout 3, where the pet gets extra strength, 60% attack speed, and some extra armor class. So pretty freaking nice for the pet. Let's see. Shield of Lava is the damage shield, saying it does like 25 damage per hit with a fire resist buff on top of that. Really nice. You can put it on other people. Here's the Mallow, minus 40 to their resist, it says. So pretty nice stuff. Here's a heal over time that you can hit your pet with. So really cool all around stuff to augment your pet, do all kinds of damage for yourself. I also wanted to show these AAs off of this page, the eql.navtech. I just like the way they've organized their page to look at the AAs. So I've got it here on Magician, came to the class AAs, and they have, and this might not be a full list, they may have added stuff into the live, but this Frenzy Burnout increases your pet's combat prowess for a minute. And then the reuse time's pretty short, if I remember right, on this, so that you can use it often. But the combat prowess, it just beefs your pet up, gives them lots of extra stats and stuff like that. It's really pretty strong. Nice little AA option to try to keep your pet going and make them more powerful. So they, try not to use components in the pets. Pretty interesting. You get an elemental form where you can turn into like a fire elemental with a damage shield, or water elemental that breathes water, stuff like that. They have a way to turn summon, which deals damage and puts a chance to trigger an infusion of elemental light, which will crit damage for a ton, it says. I haven't used that in the game, so I don't know exactly how that goes. And then a passive ability that increases the chance for your pet to crit. So pretty awesome stuff right there. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about some things to consider when you're picking the mage. So that's going to be stuff like there is no way to slow the enemies. You don't have any way to really heal yourself as a mage. You can heal your pet though. So they do have sustain in that direction, but they don't have like the self-heals that you might get from a necro or something like that, for instance. No escape, there's no way for them to like feign death or anything. And then that good nukes wasn't supposed to be on there. That was part of the pros. So as you can see, it's carryover. So that was kind of what I saw was, the no slows, the no heals, part of the sustain and stuff like that. So what I kind of think works out best for the classes to combo with the mage, they're a really well-rounded class, so they're going to go good with pretty much everything. There's tons of combos that are going to fit together, but what I think they need the most would be something with slows and something with heals. So that puts them like a shaman being a really good combo with them, or if you put in a class like a Beast Lord or something, you could have a ton of ways to buff your pets between the two classes. Your pet would be going to maximum strength, you have some good heals for yourself, you have slows on the enemy. That's an interesting pick. You could do, all the warriors and melees to make you strong while your pet just does extra damage. Something like the Enchanter is interesting because then you have these ways to augment that Enchanter pet to make it stronger, or if you charm a monster, you're able to make that charmed pet stronger with those mage abilities. Pretty interesting stuff. I couldn't, there's 100 ways to build everything. There's lots of good combos. This is just kind of what I was thinking. If I was going to do a mage specific, I would do something like maybe the Beast Lord makes sense. You'd be kind of well-rounded in that situation with like a mage and a Beast Lord. And I think you throw in something like a Enchanter, and you're using like a charmed pet that's now beefed by Beast Lords and beefed by the AAs from mage, and you've got the strongest possible charmed pet, is kind of an interesting idea, I think. So anyways, let me know in the comments what you guys think, or how you're planning to build your mage, what works for you. I love to hear kind of all the cool combos everybody's thinking of, and I've got the link to some of the playlist with the other classes in here. I really appreciate you checking out the video, watching to the end, and thanks for watching. You all have a great day.